Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content, and please like and subscribe. Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Jeff Francoeur along with Britt Lee and Brad Williams, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest, a former teammate of mine on the Miami Fightin' Fish back in 2016, but really all-star catcher, going to be playing for the WBC this year, and of course, went to the World Series last year with the Philadelphia Phillies, JT Realmuto. Thanks, JT.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here with us.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
So before, this is about youth sports, and I know I've kind of filled you in, but you got to talk to us a little bit about last October and what that was like for you personally.
Oh man, it's hard to, even to this day, it's hard to put in words. It was just such an incredible experience. Obviously, I haven't got to experience the playoffs yet to this point in my career. So this year, getting to experience that for the first time, you really just kind of get to see what baseball's all about. And the purest form of the game for me is right there in the playoffs, when the only thing that matters every day is whether you win or lose a baseball game. Your individual stats kind of go out the window. All this I stuff you don't even think about anymore, because it's all about, did our team win a game today? And if we did, we celebrate. If we don't, we figure out how to win tomorrow. It was just an incredible experience.
So JT, I'm curious, y'all had an incredible run, came up just short. When you come out of that, are you exhausted, or is your team like, man, we can't wait to get going again and get after it?
I think a little bit of both, honestly. Definitely was more physically and mentally exhausted at the end of this season than I'd ever been. I didn't realize how much, a month of extra baseball, how big of a difference that actually makes. More mentally than anything, it's just so much more. You have to be so much more locked in for a lot longer than you're used to. But then also when it's over, especially for us falling two wins short, it just makes you that much more hungry. I couldn't wait to get back started this offseason and start getting ready.
Well, that's because you don't ever take a day off. You catch every darn day, But
I try to.
But, moving over to youth sports, my passion for it. I've told you about kind of what we're doing here, but start us off. What was your favorite youth sports memory growing up in Oklahoma?
Favorite youth sports memory? To be honest, it probably wasn't even a game or anything like that. It was the thing I can remember the most was growing up every single Sunday, whether it was, because I played a lot of sports. I didn't just play baseball. So every Sunday, no matter what sport I was in, I would always ask my dad, I would beg my dad to take me up to the baseball field and hit batting practice. So no matter, we were out there hitting in 35, 40-degree weather. No matter what the weather was, every single Sunday, it's like what I look forward to the most. We'd go to the church in the morning, go get lunch, and then every Sunday, no matter what time of year, I was like, Dad, can you please take me up to the ball field? I want to hit batting practice. And he never said no to me one time. So, I can remember those days hitting batting practice probably more than I can remember any event or any tournament that I went to.
Man, that's so cool.
That's awesome. So JT, let's dig into that a little more. I know you came from a big sports family, and you played just about everything. Can you kind of walk us through your journey just from being a little kid, all the way up until when you decided baseball is the one, and just kind of tell us about that.
Yeah, so there's a lot there, because growing up, I played just about every sport I could, because I always, from a young age, I just loved sports and competing. I started off, my first couple sports were wrestling and baseball. Getting into t-ball, getting into wrestling, those were my first two loves growing up. Then started playing a little basketball around middle school. Football I started playing in, I want to say 4th grade was the first year they let us wear pads. So started football in 4th grade. continued that through high school. I wrestled from the time I was about 4 till ninth grade, and then kind of knew my future. I wanted my future to be either in baseball or football at that time. So I didn't love the idea of cutting weight during the winter during wrestling season, and so I kind of stopped wrestling in like ninth grade, and then picked up basketball more as kind of my off season, like staying in shape thing. So did that through high school. I did baseball, basketball, and football in high school. And then in middle school, I also played on the tennis team, and then loved playing tennis. I picked that up in seventh grade, played through ninth grade, and then my baseball coach made me quit tennis because it was the same time as baseball season. So they wouldn't let me keep that.
It's a good choice.
But yeah, I mean, I pretty much played every sport I could.
JT, did you feel any pressure? Because I've read where you've got an amazing sports family, and especially in wrestling. Was it a tough act to follow? I mean, did you love wrestling, or baseball just you loved it more? Or did the family kind of put any pressure on you to focus on wrestling at all?
You know what? I definitely felt pressure to keep wrestling. I don't know if that was from my family putting it on me or me just, putting that on myself. But nothing but support once I did decide to just stop wrestling and play basketball. But in the back of my mind, I was always like, oh, are they mad at me for not wrestling anymore, because that's just probably something as a kid I was putting on myself. But I think even at that age, when I was in ninth grade, I think everybody could kind of tell that baseball was probably going to be my future, either baseball or football. So nobody gave me too hard a time about it.
Growing up, a lot of our, listeners and a lot of us, our parents were such huge impacts in our lives. What kind of role did your mom and dad play as you were growing up playing sports?
Oh, I mean, they were everything. So I had 3 older siblings. I had an older brother and 2 older sisters. And my dad, so to give you a little background, like my mom's side of the family, they were the whole wrestling family. So everything on my mom's side was all wrestling. All my cousins wrestled, all my uncles wrestled. And then my dad, he was the first one. He married into the family, and he was like the big baseball player. He loved baseball, played in college. He's the one who really got us all started in baseball. And my 2 older sisters both played softball at the Division I level, so they were older than me, and he coached their softball teams through the summers. So I never really got him as a coach necessarily, but my mom I was the youngest child, and she kind of got me thrown on her where she had to be the one taking me to the ball games, taking me to the ballpark. So she was a huge part of me growing up, just because without her, I probably wouldn't be able to play sports because my dad was so busy with the older siblings. And then, like I said, my dad always made time for me every Sunday afternoon when I wanted to go to the cage. Sometimes when I didn't want to go to the cage, he was there to help me get there and get better.
You think back to growing up, you don't have to name who they are, but name one thing, one coach that you loved and why, and one coach that maybe you didn't like and what he did that, you didn't love as a player being coached by him.
Yeah, so I was pretty fortunate that all my coaches when I grew up, and I think this is also a testament to my parents, is they would never put me on teams that the sole focus of that, 8 and under, 10 and under team was to win a tournament. So I was never on teams that it was only about winning. It was always about being able to play with my friends. The coaches were there to, direct us and help us and coach us, but also we're there to have fun. And they kept that their priority is we're not going to be too hard on these kids. We're not going to be too strict on them. We want our team to have fun. And in turn, we were fortunate enough, we always had good teams. So I can always remember loving my coaches. And I had the same pretty much 2 coaches all the way growing up till high school. And they were both just incredible to me because I don't know if it's because I was a good player or what, but they were never hard on me. It was always about having fun. They were always there to correct me when I was doing wrong. But at the end of the day, they weren't scolding me. They weren't making it about, hey, we got to win this tournament. That's all that matters. It's no, we're going to go out. We're going to have fun. We're going to the hotel after, and everybody jump in the pool and do all the fun things the kids should be doing at Little League tournaments.
JT, you, for our audience who might not be as familiar, you've won several Gold Gloves as a catcher. I know in high school you were a quarterback in football. I think you played some shortstop in baseball. When did were you playing catcher in high school? And if not, or if you did, when did you start honing those skills to become a Gold Glove catcher?
So I played catcher for, I want to say, 2 games in high school. 2 games my senior year. I was a shortstop all the way growing up. But I don't know if it was destiny or what, because both of my older sisters I mentioned that played softball, they were both catchers in college. But for me, I played shortstop all growing up, and then 2 games my senior year, our catcher happened to be pitching those 2 games, and they needed to throw somebody behind the plate. So our coach threw me back there. Stan Meek and Steve Taylor were the Marlin scouts at the time for my area, and they happened to be at one of those games I caught. And they came and talked to me immediately and said, like, hey, have you ever thought about being a catcher in the future? You know, like, we love your tools behind the plate. We like your arm action. We like your footwork. We think, with some work, you could be pretty good back there. And I remember I was, I think, a junior in high school at the time, or maybe senior. And I told them that day, I was like, whatever you think is going to get me to the big leagues, I'll do it. So for a couple of years, I regretted saying that, because once I got to the minor leagues and first started catching, it was a whole different world than trying to catch my high school pitcher. I was back there getting my butt kicked every day, and it was a lot of work. And I honestly, I think all the way up until 3 or 4 years ago, I was really still working on the craft of catching and trying to figure myself out and figure out how my body moves. And obviously, I'm still working this day, to try to get better. But I think I made considerable strides maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and kind of started to figure out how my body works.
JT, how younger were you when you started kind of having those dreams and those goals that you kind of wanted to, especially in baseball? Like, at what age did you say, hey, I really think this is, I could maybe play in college or even beyond? How old were you?
I was probably middle school, maybe 8th or 9th grade. Young high school or late in middle school is when I started to realize, like, hey, I always loved baseball, but I never knew how good I was going to be or how much work I was willing to put in. And I think once I started playing basketball, and I would leave basketball tournaments and ask my dad, hey, I want to go to the cage, I think that's when I started to realize, man, I really love this, and I enjoy putting the work in. And my dad always instilled in me, if I worked hard, I was going to make it. And so I really never had any doubt that I had the ability to make it. It was just whether I loved it enough to put in the work to do so. And I started to figure that out, sometime in middle school, high school.
So JT, even though you played other sports, did you work on your craft of baseball year round, as a teenager? What did your training look like?
So my dad was pretty strict on me as far as he never let me play baseball if it wasn't baseball season, like the summers, So I always begged to play fall ball. I always begged to do these random, travel tournaments with my friends. But, if I was in football season or I was in basketball season, he would always say no. And, he didn't tell me at the time, but later on he told me he wanted me to want to get to baseball season. He never wanted to burn me out of playing ball growing up. So by the time baseball season rolled around, he wanted me to be begging to get out there and play baseball, So I never didn't want to play. I never got burnt out of it. So other than this Sunday afternoon where he would take me up and hit with me for an hour or two at the field, that was pretty much the only baseball I would do if it wasn't smack dab in the middle of Little League season.
We talk about all the physical attributes you have. To some of the younger listeners in here, for you mentally, how do you prepare every single day, handle, look, the pressures of playing in Philadelphia? It's not the easiest place to play. How do you kind of take all that in stride?
Yeah, I just think you have to realize that this is a game of failure, and a lot of being successful in this sport is how you can handle that adversity and how you can respond for it, because the best players in the world are failing 7 out of 10 times, and so we're all going to fail and we're all going to struggle, and it's not going to ever be easy. This sport's never easy for anybody. So the sooner you realize that, and the sooner you can mentally prepare yourself to know how you're going to respond to certain situations and certain failures, and know that you're going to get on the other side of them, and you're going to have your hot streaks and be able to ride those, but on your cold streaks, not get too down, not beat yourself up, and just know that you're going to get out of it. I feel like that is the most important thing mentally, especially as a hitter on the hitting side of things. Just being able to get through those times and know that you're going to get out of it and have trust in yourself makes the game, in my opinion, a lot easier, because when you do go through those struggles, you're already prepared for it, you're ready for it, and you're just ready to do the work to get out of it.
Was there ever a point in the minor leagues, JT, where you kind of had that internal question of, am I going to be able to do this? If you're having those times, like you said, especially at the plate or when you're learning how to catch, where you really started questioning, is my future Major League Baseball?
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember. I was roommates with Christian Yelich for. We got drafted together, signed together. We were roommates for the first 5 years, all the way through the minor leagues. And I can remember sitting in our apartments having conversations like, man, are we going to make it? Like, I don't know if we're good enough. And then I'd get to the ballpark the next day, and I look at Yelich, and he's hitting 320, and I'm hitting 220, struggling behind the plate. I'm like, well, you got to stop saying that. I'm the one over here struggling. So absolutely, those feelings creep into your mind. Like I said, because it's a game of failure, you're always going to question yourself sometimes, and that's just part of it. But I think in the back of my mind, I always knew that if I worked hard and I kept at it, learning a new position catching wasn't easy, but I felt like if I just kept putting the work in and kept putting the time in, that eventually I was going to get there.
So JT, you talk about baseball being a game of failure, and at all levels, kids go through slumps, professionals go through slumps, and we hear about working hard, working through it. Can you, describe what you do? If you're going through a rough patch, what do you specifically do to work your way out of that?
So I have, it's funny you ask that, because this season I probably went through one of my worst stretches of my career, at least the longest. I was for probably 2 or 3 months. I just didn't feel like myself. Nothing felt right at the plate. I really struggled, and it's funny. This is my 8th season in the big leagues, and I'm still learning how to deal with this failure and how to deal with this struggle, and how when things start going wrong, it's so easy to chase a rabbit down the hole, and you're watching all this film on your swing and you're trying to change things, and you're like, oh, you watch other guys hit and you're like, well, he does it this way, maybe I should try that. Maybe I should try this. And then it gets worse, and your 1-2 week stretch turns into a 2-month stretch. And that just happened for me this year. So it's something I'm still trying to learn how to handle, but for me, you just have to get back to the basics. You have to know yourself and what you do well, what's worked for you in the past. And when I did that this summer, my season took off. I stopped thinking about what my swing could look like, and I started focusing on, hey, what have I done in the past that has made me successful? What are the feels? What are the thoughts? And I texted one of my old coaches that I used to work with hitting, and he gave me the 3 most simple things you could think of as far as hitting goes. And that's all I focused on for a few days in my work in the game. It was basically an approach, like, drive the ball to right center. It's something that simple. And I stopped thinking about all this other stuff that I could change in my swing or I might want to try next, and just got back to what I did well in the past, and took off from there.
You got the World Baseball Classic coming up, and you get a chance to play for my neighbor, Mark DeRosa. Talk about that. How excited are you to represent the USA?
Oh, man, I can't tell you how excited I am. I was bummed I didn't get to play in the last one. So when they called this time and asked me to play, I said yes before they could even finish asking the question. That I was just to be able to wear that jersey, put USA across my chest, and get to suit it up with. The team we put together, the lineup is pretty incredible. So just to get to work with those guys, to get to play with those type of athletes, it's something I'm definitely excited for.
Yeah, finishing up here, a couple more questions. You got a lot of young athletes out there, male and female, trying to figure out, navigate. What is your best advice for them as they go through, 8, 9, 10 years old, but even through middle school and high school? What's your best advice for young athletes?
I think what worked so well for me was not specializing in one sport too early. Because if I had done that, I probably would have ended up wrestling in college. Something would have completely changed my career. But because I was, tried every single sport, really played them all as long as I could to see what I loved and what I enjoyed doing the most, I feel like that propelled me to where I am today. And also just specializing can sometimes, especially if you're specializing in a sport like baseball, it's such a, technique sport, and the fundamentals are so important. But if you're only playing baseball your whole life and you don't get to play other sports like wrestle, football, basketball, sometimes you won't develop, explosiveness or the strength or the flexibility you get from those sports. Like, I feel like for me, playing so many sports when I was younger, it helped me to become a more well-rounded athlete and not just a fundamentally sound baseball player, which obviously you want to be fundamentally sound as well, but my athleticism has taken me to another level than what I could have been if I was just a fundamentally sound athlete, So for me, being able to not specialize too early and just play the sports you love as long as you can, that's the best thing I think a kid could do.
I know you got a bunch of youngins at home. So as they grow up and you start to coach them, what's something that your parents did that you will for sure instill in your kids?
I think the work ethic, for one, that if you want to get better at anything in life, it's going to take a ton of work, more work than you could imagine. And then also just letting them kind of choose their path. If they want to dance, I'm going to let them dance. If they love it, keep dancing. If they want to do gymnastics, do that. If they want to play soccer, whatever, I want to put everything I can in front of them, let them try as many sports as they can, as many activities as they can, whether it's music, whatever it is. Let them try as much as they can and see what they fall in love with and let them follow that path.
All right. Well, dude, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. I know you're getting ready for the season, and, you've always been a great friend and a good teammate when we played together. And I know both these guys, I've told them so much about you, but thanks for being a good role model, too, for all our kids out there.
Of course, man. Love what you guys are doing here. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much.
All right. See you guys.
Hey, guys. Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.